Hi there. Today we're going to explore the plot of the 2006 film Open Water 2, Adrift. A birthday celebration on a luxurious yacht turns into a true nightmare for a group of friends. Amy, Zach, Lauren, and Dan have been friends since their school days. Amy and Dan once had a brief romance, but now Amy is a happy wife and mother. She's married to a man named James, and together they're raising their young daughter, Sarah. To celebrate Zach's birthday, Dan decides to throw a special party for the group. He invites everyone onto his brand new yacht. On board are Lauren, who flirts with the birthday boy Zach, Amy and James carrying little Sarah with them, Dan himself, the proud yacht owner, and his casual companion Michelle, who's already relaxing in one of the cabins. Dan welcomes his guests and tells them to make themselves at home. The mood is cheerful. Drinks, jokes, and laughter fill the air. Amy and James tuck Sarah into bed in one of the cabins and turn on the baby monitor, while the rest continue celebrating on deck. As the alcohol starts to take effect, Michelle grabs an inflatable dolphin and is the first to jump into the water. She's quickly followed by Zach and Lauren in diving masks. Zach even brings a knife for collecting shellfish. Amy, however, stays on deck. Since childhood, she's had a deep fear of water. Watching her father drown left her with lasting trauma. She steps away to check on her daughter. Dan follows her, compliments her child, and unexpectedly confesses that he wishes he had kids of his own. He adds that if he hadn't been such an idiot, maybe he would have been in James's place now. It seems his feelings for Amy haven't completely faded. When Amy returns to the deck, she admits she can't relax because of her fear of the water. Wanting to help and thinking it'll be funny, Dan suddenly picks her up and jumps overboard with her. Amy has a full-blown panic attack. Memories from childhood flash before her eyes. She screams, trying to save her father, but the water swallows him right in front of her. She freezes in the water, paralyzed by fear. The others rush to help, trying to calm her down, while Lauren yells, "We need to get her back on board. Where's the ladder?" Then comes the shocking realization. Dan forgot to lower the ladder, and he didn't drop anchor either. The yacht is now drifting in open waters, and they're all in the sea with no way to get back on board. Dan tries to climb on the inflatable dolphin and push himself up to reach the deck, but it bursts and deflates. Amy, finally regaining her senses, becomes frantic about her daughter. She screams that Sarah is alone in the cabin. James tries to calm her down. "It's going to be okay. We'll get back soon." Dan notices the flag on the bow of the yacht and tries to grab it. He nearly reaches it, but as he pulls, the flag rips and he falls back into the water. Michelle starts to panic. She screams that something touched her leg. She's convinced it's a shark. Dan dives in with a mask but finds nothing. Michelle is in hysterics. She's the typical horror movie character who gets eliminated first. The others begin blaming Dan for everything that's gone wrong. Feeling insulted, Michelle swims away from the group. Her panic escalates as she approaches Lauren and begs her to share her life vest. Lauren tries to calm her down. Suddenly they hear a faint sound. A mobile phone is ringing somewhere above, on the yacht. It's coming from Zach's jacket, which is hanging off the side of the deck. Zach manages to hook the sleeve, carefully pulls it down, and grabs the phone. On the phone was his sister. She was happily wishing him a happy birthday. Zach tries to shout over her and explain what happened, but she cannot hear anything. The phone gets wet, and the connection breaks. Zach, in anger, throws the phone into the water. Another hope for rescue vanished. After another panic attack and complaints from the freezing Michelle, Dan suggests that everyone take off their swimsuits, tie them together, and make something like a rope. The idea is simple. Throw it over the railing and use it to climb back onto the deck. At that moment, a speedboat with a loud party passes nearby. The friends call for help, but because of the loud music, the partygoers think they are happily waving back, and the boat sails further away. Zach cuts his shorts into strips with a knife, manages to throw the improvised rope onto the deck and hook it onto the railing, but the fabric cannot hold his weight. He falls. James asks Dan if there is a way to get onto the yacht from below, and is surprised to find out that Dan does not know the structure of the vessel he recently bought. Wearing a mask and carrying a knife, James dives down to inspect the hull, but the knife slips out. Trying to retrieve it, James dives too deep, panics, quickly surfaces, and hits his head on the propeller. The water around him turns red. Emmy swims up to her husband and realizes the injury is serious. Zach grabs a knife and tries to jam it into the hull, creating a step. Dan, wanting to protect his yacht, tries to stop him. In the struggle, Zach accidentally wounds Dan, and blood spreads around him. Michelle panics. The blood will attract sharks, and swims away. Lauren asks for the rope and tries to bandage Zach's wound. Meanwhile, Sarah wakes up. Her crying is heard through the baby monitor. Everyone notices that Michelle has disappeared. Dan swims after her, but the exhausted and freezing girl has already gone underwater. Zach shivers with cold, barely able to speak, but holding on, he jokes and comforts Lauren. He says he should have confessed his feelings to her sooner, and suddenly loses consciousness. Lauren tearfully begs him not to pass out. Crying, Lauren and James accuse Dan. They say the yacht is more important to him than his friends. Emmy tries to calm her husband, but James convinces himself that she is defending Dan because she still loves him. Dan explains that he could not allow Zach to damage the vessel, since the yacht does not belong to him but to his employer. He is not rich at all, just a gopher at the post office. Under the guise of a millionaire, Dan had so deeply immersed himself in the role that he truly believed in the invented life. Lauren refuses to just drift and wait for death. She wants to try to swim to shore. She hugs Emmy, tells her to stay strong, asks Dan to look after her, and swims away. Sarah's crying is heard again. Emmy shouts to her daughter that she will be there soon and sobs helplessly. James begins to hallucinate. He no longer realizes where he is. It begins to rain. Exhausted, Emmy drinks the rainwater and suggests James do the same, but he no longer responds. She sings the song she always used to hum to Sarah and swears that she and her daughter will remember him. The storm intensifies. Dan dives, desperately trying to find the lost knife, the only chance to climb onto the deck. Confronting his fear and guilt, he shouts that he should die, and in anger, smashes his mask against the side of the yacht. Looking at a large shard of glass, Dan realizes there is still a chance to survive. He calls out to Emmy, wedges the shard into the gap Zach had made earlier, and holding onto it, asks the girl to climb onto his shoulders. After several attempts, she manages to keep her balance and climb onto the deck. First thing, Emmy presses the button and lowers the gangway, then rushes to the cabin. She picks up Sarah in her arms, begs forgiveness for leaving her alone, and calms her daughter. Calling for Dan and receiving no answer, Emmy goes out onto the deck and sees him drifting away from the yacht. Devastated by grief and guilt over the death of their friends, Dan refuses to save himself. Emmy looks at the hateful sea again and remembers that terrible day when she lost her father. Afraid now to lose her friend too, she overcomes her aquaphobia, jumps into the water after him, leaving Sarah aboard. The gangway is down, but ahead lie currents, possible cramps, and even predatory fish, so the risk of not returning in time is huge. At dawn, the weather clears. A fishing boat approaches the drifting yacht. The deck is empty. The boat's owner calls out, "Is there anyone alive here?" and hears a distant trembling child's cry. On the deck stands Emmy, and in front of her lies unconscious Dan. With every passing second, the motor of the boat and the child's cry grow quieter. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, give it a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.